You may be seated. Before we begin our services here today, out of respect to the family and any speakers, including the clergy, most of us today do carry a cell phone. I'm going to ask, please look at your device and make sure it has been turned off or the ringer is off so it does not ring during the service, please. The other request I have, while the service is in progress, please refrain from commenting or whispering to each other, if you would. Family and friends, we're gathered here today to celebrate the life of the late Martin Speciner. Conducting today's services will be Rabbi Stephen Pinsky. Rabbi?
Thank you. Out of the depths we call unto thee, O God. In thy hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Thy loving kindness is never withdrawn from us, but ever abides with us in death as in life. In thy wisdom thou hast laid upon us this heavy burden. Mayest thou also in thy mercy give us the strength to bear it. Guide and sustain us as we stray from thy paths. Give us that strength of faith which shall keep us from murmuring against the justice of thy dispensation, even when thou dost afflict us. Grant us, we pray thee, the understanding which shall enable us to recognize that the hand that woundeth is the hand that bindeth up again. Thou art the life of all life. In this hour of grief, let us listen to the voice of the psalmist as he brings us a message of God's nearness, of our fellowship with God in light and in darkness, in joy and in sorrow, in life and in death. Ese einai al haharim me'ayin yivo ezri, ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz, al yitein lamut raglecha al yanum shamrecha, hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shamer Yisrael, Adonai shamrecha, Adonai tzilach ad yad yaminecha, Yamam Hashemesh lo yakeka v'yirech balayla. Adonai yishmarecha mikol ra yishmaret nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzeitecha v'oecha me'atavi ad olam. I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. From whence shall my help come? My help cometh from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel doth neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall keep thee from all evil. He shall keep thy soul. The Lord shall guard thy going out and thy coming in, from this time forth and forevermore. Adonai ma Adam v'tariehu ben enosh v'archashvehu. Adam lehevel dema yemav ketzelover. Baboka yatzitz v'chalaf le'erev v'maleal v'yavesh. Tashev enosh adaka. V'tomer shuva v'nei Adam. Lo hachmer skidozot shavinu liyacharitam. Ki lo v'moto yikach hakol. Lo yered acharav kevodo. Poda Adonai nefesh avadav. V'lo yeshmu kol hachosim bo. O Lord, what is man that thou takest knowledge of him? Or the son of man that makest account of him? Man is like unto vanity. His days are as a shadow that passeth away. In the morning he flourisheth and groweth up. In the evening he is cut down and withereth. Thou turnest man to contrition and sayest, Return ye children of men. Oh, that they were wise, that they would consider their latter end. For when man dieth, he shall carry nothing away. His glory shall not descend after him. But the Lord redeemeth the souls of his servants, and none of them that trust in God shall be forsaken. Death has summoned our beloved Martin Speciner. Our souls cry out unto thee, O Lord, what is man? Is he the creature of dust whose destiny it is but to return to the dust from which he came? The ancient sage has taught us the spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord. Not even the darkness of death can extinguish God's light, which is kindled in the sanctuary of our souls. Therefore, God, we thank thee in this solemn hour for that which was deathless in the life of our cherished Martin Speciner, and which is now revealed to us in all its beauty, for his love that united us in life and which death cannot sever, for his companionship which we shared along life's path and which still continue through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and his mind which brought us joy and happiness, and now have become a precious heritage of the Spirit. For all these and more, we give thee our praise. Grant unto us, O Lord, the strength of all the generations of our people, who in the face of bereavement proclaimed Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mivarach. The Lord hath given, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Adonai Natan, Lord, thou hast given, that it's given to us, our dear Martin Speciner, for all that was good and endearing in his life. We offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, and Lord, thou hast taken, thou hast called him unto thyself. We pray thee, O God, for the courage to make our broken hearts an altar, before which acknowledge thy sovereignty and thy love, as we say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mivarach. May thy name be blessed now and forevermore. Amen. Before I begin the eulogy, I'd like to ask the three of you who are wearing ribbons to please rise for just a moment. The ribbons that you're wearing are really a remnant of a very ancient custom. In biblical times and thereafter, when someone died in the Jewish community, the mourners, the official mourners, which you are, would tear their clothing. And they would wear the torn clothing for 30 days as a sign of mourning, so people would treat them in a special way. At the end of the 30 days, people didn't have the amount of clothing we do. They were allowed to sew the clothing back together so they could wear it again, but never in such a way that it appeared that it had not been torn. And the idea, as difficult as it feels right now, is that we heal, but the tear within us becomes part of who we each become. You'll notice that your mother is wearing it on the opposite side than you are. Only children wear the ribbon over the hearts. Everyone else wears it on the opposite side. Dear Lila, dear Mark and Midge, dear Deborah and Doran, dear Ariel, dear David, dear Barbara, who is watching electronically in California, dear family and friends all, whether you're here or online. There is a beautiful story which is told in our tradition, in which we're asked to imagine a great castle. We see a huge banquet table. The feast is concluded. The guests sit around it before a huge fireplace. The room is shrouded in deepest darkness. Suddenly, from an open window high above, a wild swallow, lured by the light, flies into the hall. For a few brief moments, it beats its wings wildly against the great expanse of the hall, and then just as swiftly as it entered, impelled by some primordial impulse, the swallow disappears through the open window on the opposite side. The story possesses such power because it is, of course, an allegory of human life, of our lives, of Martin Speciner's long and very full life. Like a swallow, we come into the world out of darkness. For a moment, we experience the beauty and warmth of life's banquet chamber. And then, because of our inescapable human destiny, we disappear into eternity. You know, indeed we all know, that the more we think we understand, the less we do understand. Life is disarmingly deceptive, so very fragile, so incomprehensible, so ephemeral. And so we are not gathered in this place this afternoon to question, for even a suitable answer would lead us nowhere we want to go. Nor are we here to mourn Martin's 89 years of life, because quite frankly, from all you told me, Lila and Debbie, as we spoke together Friday afternoon with Mark and Midge, of course, listening and contributing to the conversation over the telephone from their car as they prepared to drive from their home to Palm Beach County. The three of us, Lila and Debbie and I, sitting around your kitchen table, Lila, from all you told me about Martin, there is so much more to celebrate than there is to mourn. And so we're gathered here this day to celebrate the life of Martin Speciner and to express our gratitude for the many, many gifts which he gave to each of you, and indeed to everyone who knew and who loved him. But still, how does one tell the story of this very special, this very unique man? This man whom you so lovingly described to me, dear Lila and Debbie and Mark, during our very caring conversation Friday afternoon, when I asked you to tell me about your husband and your father. You said, Debbie, with a smile on your face and a slight laugh, that your dad was very proud of his lawn. And when I asked you to explain, you said that in so many ways his beautiful lawn was reflective of the very particular man your dad was. That he was just a bit OCD, just a bit short of obsessive compulsive, explaining that he was happiest and most content when everything was in its place. That as you and Mark were growing up, every item in your rooms had to be put back into its proper place once you were done playing or using them. And you're continuing, Debbie, that your dad was a dedicated believer in doing what you had to do and doing it now, not putting anything off to tomorrow if it can be done today. And you're concluding that even as he faced death, he did it in his own way, when and how he would take his last breath before he peacefully passed away. And then the two of you, Lila and Debbie, and you, Mark, on the telephone, continued to paint a portrait of your husband and your father, stroke by stroke, as you remembered him. One of you saying that Martin was in so many ways a real foodie, that he just adored a properly grilled steak or a delicious lobster dinner, and that he became in later years a pretty good grill man himself, indeed learning when he was on his own how to cook and do the laundry and take care of himself. You're explaining, Debbie, that your dad was an accountant, both by profession and by personality. He just loved order and neatness, even numbering the plastic water bottles he kept in his refrigerator so that the oldest bottles would be used before he reached for a newly placed one. You're concluding that he was in every way the quintessential accountant. To which you, Mark, added that your dad was so extraordinarily organized, with a capital O, you said, and that you in your own life often strive for that organizational skill, but unfortunately or not, always fail to even come close to your dad's abilities. And then you finally added, Mark, that your father could be and often was enormously persistent, that when he knew what he wanted, he would always strive to get it. And finally, you remembered to complete the portrait that you were all painting of your dad by saying that he was in so many different ways extraordinarily opinionated, that he knew what he believed and he stuck to those beliefs throughout his life. Although he did, as you said, Mark, he did mellow just a bit as he grew older. But all three of you, of course, agreed that above all else, your husband and your father was a family man who was born 89 years ago on January 14th, 1937 in New York City and grew up in Manhattan. That his father, Morris, who was inexplicably called Jack, supported himself, maybe he was inexplicably, supported himself and his family working as a salesman, while his mother, Ruth, was for the most part a homemaker who brought up Martin and his younger sister, Barbara, but is remembered most fondly by the three of you as a real party girl, a woman who was, as you recall, quite glamorous and more than just a bit vain. And then Martin shared a very close and loving relationship with his mother, most especially following his father's passing in his early 50s. A bit of a mama's boy, though through much of his life, whom his mom often called her little bunny. And he would laugh at it, okay. Martin remaining close to her as she aged, with Debbie helping to make sure that her grandmother was properly cared for before she moved for the last 2 years of her life to the West Coast, where she could be close to and be cared for by her younger sister, Barbara. The two living just a couple of blocks apart until Ruth's passing at the age of 94 and a half. You're continuing that Martin and his baby sister, she was 4 years younger than her big brother, shared a very caring and very close relationship throughout their lives, with Martin becoming a beloved uncle to Barbara's children, Marcia and David, and then, of course, to their families. And you will hear in a few minutes from David, who traveled across the country to represent and speak for his mother at this memorial service, that Martin began his education in New York City public schools until he and his family moved following the post-war migration post-World War II migration from the city to the suburbs, from their apartment in Manhattan into a house on Long Island's South Shore in Hewlett, where he graduated from Woodmere High School and then enrolled in Columbia College, where he earned his bachelor's degree in accounting before he completed his graduate studies by receiving a master's degree in business from Columbia University. The Wallace student at Columbia College, the very eligible Martin Speciner, met, or rather, did I do something wrong? No, okay. Okay, or rather re-met the very lovely Lila Marcus at a was it Morris? Okay, I told you can correct me, and you did. You got one. At a party thrown by mutual friends. Lila was a close friend of Martin's sister Barbara from their days growing up in Long Island's 5 towns, and he, of course, knew Lila pretty well as a young girl. But somehow, as they were reintroduced to one another, she was only 16 and still in high school, still a high school student, while he was all of 20 years old. The two saw one another differently and began dating, and once Lila was a student at Hunter College in Manhattan, her father gave Lila permission to marry Martin Speciner after she had sworn to her dad that she would most definitely complete her college degree, which she of course did after the two were married on June 9th, 1960, the beginning of a marriage which would last for the next half of a century. A 50-year relationship which most definitely had its share, like all of our marriages, of its ups and its downs, and which did, after a half-century, ended with a separation. But years which were, as you said, Lila, which had, as you said, their share of some wonderful years, including, of course, their annual trips taken together each summer. Years which did as well have their fair share of deep caring for one another. The two of you, as you added, Lila, going on your own ways after your 50th anniversary. Years in which the friendship which you both shared actually deepened and grew even as you were living two very separate existences. Years in which you both remained strong in your devotion to your 2 children and their lives. The young couple beginning their lives together in an apartment in Regal Park, Queens, with Martin supporting himself and his very young wife, working for a public accounting firm in Manhattan, while you, Lila, worked for the first 2 years of your marriage as a second-grade teacher in the Rockaways, a home into which Martin and Lila brought their first child, a son, Mark, my typing, and a son, Mark, born in 1962, and their second child, Debbie, born, we won't say the year, but it was 2.5 years later, remaining in Regal Park until the family, now complete, moved into a home on Meadowrue Lane in East Northport on Long Island's North Shore in 1968, and in which both of their children grew up and in which they lived for nearly 30 years. The move precipitated by Martin's finding a job as the controller of a lamp manufacturing company, Mobilet Manufacturing, headquartered at the time in nearby Hapog in Suffolk County, a position in which Martin oversaw much of the company's business and manufacturing, the move, of course, making Martin's commute so much easier and shorter. The years in East Newport remembered, as you said, Lila, as good years for both of you, raising your 2 children, lives shared by 3 other couples who became fast and close friends with the 2 of you. Martin enjoying his gin games with his friends while becoming active first in the financial end of the East Northport Jewish Center, and then his eventual serving as the congregation's president. Lila returning to the workforce, often taking positions which mirrored her children's growth, first teaching in the nursery school in which they were enrolled at the Jewish Center, and eventually, after studying for a paralegal certificate, she landed a job working for the Port Authority, commuting daily via the Long Island Railroad to a job in Manhattan. The Martin and Lila retired when he reached his 62nd birthday, and they together decided to first purchase a home in a senior community in Melville, and then to buy a second home on Wailea Drive in the newly constructed Valencia Isles community in Boynton Beach, where they began as snowbirds traveling back and forth between Long Island and Palm Beach County. Martin and Lila sharing once again an excellent social life together as part of the same foursome with whom they were so very close on Long Island, all of whom had relocated to Florida. Martin becoming involved in the financial committee of their homeowners association. The 2 of them celebrating their 50th anniversary along with their family, sharing a cruise to Bermuda where they had traveled on their honeymoon a half-century earlier. a celebration after which they both agreed to go their own separate ways, which they, of course, did, each developing their own friendships and their own social lives, but always being there together for their children and their families, becoming, as you said, Lila, better friends than you ever were as husband and wife with your moving into a home on Kapalua Way in Valencia Isles. Martin creating his own life, remaining independent and finding skills he never knew he had or needed along the way until he suffered from a major stroke on the 13th of July while alone in his home. Lila discovering Martin after receiving a call from Martin's sister and her friend Barbara that she had been unable to reach her brother on the telephone. Lila, of course, immediately contacting the emergency services. Martin was taken to the emergency room of the Delray Medical Center, where he was met by Debbie. He was admitted to the hospital and then placed in a rehab center until Debbie arranged for him to be relocated to the John Knox Village in Pompano Beach, where she worked. Martin remaining there, eventually being placed in the healthcare's rehab unit last Tuesday until last Tuesday when he was transferred to their hospice unit, where he remained for just 2 days. Visited by his family, including, of course, by his nephew David, Barbara's son, remaining under hospice care until he decided that he had had enough, and he simply closed his eyes and peacefully passed away. That as a father, and you will hear from several family members in just a moment, you said, Mark, that while packing up your car for your journey to South Florida, that you shared a really good relationship with your dad, remembering that he had coached your Little League team for the 6 years you were playing ball as a kid. And although, as Debbie and you agreed, you were the far easier child as you were growing up, a bit of a straight arrow, you did clash with your dad over issues of your not being nearly as organized as he would have wanted, or as handy as he was. There was always, nonetheless, a strong bond between the two of you. While Debbie said that you were far more challenging than your brother was, as you were both growing up, and you were often warned by your mom to wait until your father gets home. But as the years passed, your dad did begin to see you as his little girl, a process made easier and maybe even possible by your significant other, Dorian Smith. Both of you, Mark and Debbie, agreeing that your dad was so very proud of the people each of you became, of the lives you lived, of the careers you chose, of the families you created. And then Martin became a very good father-in-law to Mark's wife, Midge, the two of them sharing a lot of interests in common, from the sports they both enjoyed to the finances Martin helped Midge understand, Midge becoming another child to be loved and to be cared for. Well, it took a while for Martin to accept Iran, your partner, Debbie, into his life, but he did learn to both care for and respect him, especially seeing how happy his daughter and Duran were together. What could make a father more happy? And finally, Martin became an exceptional grandfather to Mark and Midge's daughter, Ariel, finding, as do many of us, being a grandfather far easier and probably far more rewarding than being a parent. Martin being blessed with the years to watch Ariel grow and to begin her own life, to share in the joy of her marriage to Michael Ballett, a doctor no less. Each of you now becoming Martin's legacy, his bit of tomorrow. And now his story becomes each of yours to tell and to retell, a door for the rest of your lives. And who better to speak of Martin's long and very full life than his son Mark, his daughter Debbie, his daughter-in-law Midge, his granddaughter Ariel, followed by his nephew David, who will speak on behalf of Martin's sister Barbara. So we start with Mark.
Make sure the mic is on. First, I would like to thank everyone for coming, whether you are here live with us or you are here via Zoom, to honor the memory of my dad. Before I share my thoughts about my dad, I would like to first read to you a text that my cousin Marcia sent to my father while he was in the hospital. So just give me a moment here. And I'm just going to read it verbatim. It says, "Dear Uncle Martin, I'm so saddened to learn that your health has taken such a terrible turn for the worse. I will miss your heavy New York accent, espousing all of your hard-learned wisdom. I've missed our biannual Thanksgiving weekends together and our visits together for January birthdays. We really tried to get there this year, but it wasn't meant to be. I even remember fondly all of the Passover Seders that we had at your home on Long Island when us kids were really young, and your visit to us at the Plush Horse Hotel right after we moved to Cali, when the four of us kids rode down the elevator in our PJs because we were arguing about something. I hope there's an afterlife where you'll get to be with your beloved mother and that Mom will join you when she's ready. Love and kisses, your favorite niece. All right, so for those of you who are not aware, I'm a teacher. I'm a high school social studies teacher. And as one of the things that I do as the social studies teacher is I am asked by seniors to write letters of recommendation for students who are applying to colleges. And in the website where you upload your letter of recommendation, there's always a section where you're asked, what are some words to describe the applicant? So I thought what I would do is I would provide a letter of recommendation for my dad's application to the next life. So the first word, and forgive me, I think the rabbi may have mentioned some of these terms. The first word that comes to my mind was exacting. And if you know my dad, you know things had to be done a certain way. And the problem that I would run into is that his way and my way were often not the same way. For example, and to this day I still don't understand this concept, my dad liked to sweep the garage. And so he would task me with sweeping the garage, and invariably, or maybe raking leaves, invariably I would not do as good a job as he would have wanted me to do. And I would say to him all the time, and I know he did not appreciate me saying it, said, if you knew that I wasn't going to do it as well as you, why didn't you just do it yourself? So the second word that came to mind was the word persistent, and again I think the rabbi mentioned that. My father, when facing a task, did not give up until he obtained satisfaction. And the best example that I can think of that is his multi-year battle with the Homeowners Association about the grass in his backyard. For those of you unfamiliar with this story, there were trees that were overhanging and it cut off the sunlight to the grass and killed the grass, and he fought, it must be 2 or 3 years, he fought with the HOA. But finally, the HOA agreed with his perspective on things, and lo and behold, the trees got cut back and new grass was planted, and nothing made him happier that when we would come over, he would say, come see the new grass, come look at the grass. And I have to admit, it was magnificent grass. Another example of his persistence actually is very, very recent. As you may know, he was a collector of Yadros. And after a while, he decided he would try to sell some of these Yadros. And unfortunately, the piece that he had found a buyer for was damaged in transit. And he was about to embark on a dispute with FedEx over the shipping of the Yadro. For obvious reasons, that is a moot point at this point. But that is persistence. The next word that comes to my mind is the word proud. My father was very proud of me. As a teacher, in my first half of my career, I was an intellectual property attorney. I was very competent, but I was by no means a star attorney because I found it to be boring after a while. So I heard that I heard that there's good money in teaching, and then I heard they pay really well here in Florida. So I managed to get a job teaching high school social studies in Sarasota County, where I'm about to begin my 17th year of teaching, and I'm still loving it. And my father always mentioned how proud he was of the good job that I was doing. Sorry. As the rabbi also mentioned, the thing he was probably maybe the most proud of was his lawn. You heard the... and particularly the front yard of our house in East Northport. He had beautiful sod on the front lawn, and the rule was no one was allowed to walk on the sod. So when my friends and I would come over to my house to play whatever sport we were playing, we could only play in the backyard. Never can't play on it, can't touch it, can't walk on it, nothing. Well, all that changed January 6, 1991, when Ariel was born, and when we would visit the house, not only could Ariel play on the sod, but she used to sit and pull the sod out. And my father thought that was the greatest thing ever. The next word that I would use to describe my dad, again, was previously mentioned by the rabbi, and that was the word organized. As the rabbi said, my father had a place for everything and everything in its place. And a story that stands out in my mind is, as was mentioned, we moved to East Northport in 1968. It was a brand new house. It was built in a development. And when it was time to sell that house, my dad had a file cabinet in the garage. And in that file cabinet were the original blueprints for the house. Now, my wife and I built a house in 2015. I promise you, we don't have the blueprints for the house. Also, even while he was in the hospital and then in the rehab facility, he would tell us, I need you to bring me this document. It's in the folder labeled this, underneath the desk, if you 2/3 of the way back, and then Midge and I would go. My mom and my sister were on a cruise, and so we had come over to sort of be the caretakers, and so we were charged with visiting in the hospital. And he would say, it's there, it's there. Sure enough, we would go back to his house, and it would be exactly where he told us it was. The last word that I'm going to use is actually a phrase, and that was the word well-intentioned. Well-intentioned. Although he was not the best communicator, and although he and I certainly disagreed a lot, I know that when he offered his opinion or advice, regardless of whether it was solicited or not, he always had my best interests at heart. And in fact, I'm sure all of you were exposed to his opinions on the best way to do things and so forth, and he always did it from a place of caring. He always felt that his way would be the best way to do something, and it would improve whatever it is that the subject at hand. My dad lived to be almost 90 years, longer than anyone, especially him, expected. So while this is a sad occasion, and I will miss him terribly, I know he is at peace, and I know that he is telling God what to do about the sod and how to better organize the files of everyone's souls. Thank you.
Debbie.
Okay, hi everybody. You're going to hear a lot of the same stories, so I guess it really is very telling who Martin was. I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate his life. Everybody here and in Zoom land. Hi. I'm going to start in 2015 when Duran and I moved back to Florida so we could live closer to our parents. I really don't appreciate the weather here, but I am incredibly grateful that we made the move. Over the past 11 years, we enjoyed many Father's Days, Mother's Days, holidays, and countless random lunches and dinners with our parents. We got to be part of their lives as they grew older. We hosted Thanksgiving at our house, and Dad brought his A game. He was our master turkey carver. We watched in awe as he launched his masterful carving skills. He explained his process, we took notes, and we took videos. We'll do our best this November to make him proud. Dad was always yelling, "Turn down the music, Duran." What did Duran just say? Or asking me something, anything just to get my attention. Then he did have a famous line, "You should have." That was one of his favorites. He was always telling us how we should have done something differently than the way we actually did it. As a CPA, Dad was always good with numbers, and he definitely believed in don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. So every January 1, he would start the calls. "When are you going to file your taxes?" He taught me the importance of filing sooner rather than later. Eventually, I started preparing my taxes without him, not because I didn't want his help, but because I wanted him to relax and know that he had taught me well. I think I'll miss him the most between 6 and 8 in the morning and 5 and 7 at night. These were our daily check-ins. In the morning, he would call or text with some computer issue that needed immediate remedying, or share some bizarre dream he had had the night before. Then on my drive home from work, he would summarize his day. He would tell me every detail of what he ate, where he went, and what he accomplished that day. But he would never forget to remind me about something I had supposedly neglected and ask why I hadn't taken care of it sooner. But he always asked me about my day. He wanted to hear what was new, what was happening at work, and of course, what were my dogs up to. When Dad was in rehab hospital saying his goodbyes, Duran came up behind me, put his arms around me, and told my dad that everything was going to be okay and that he was going to take care of me. My dad looked at Duran, he looked at me, and he looked at Duran, and he said, "Just do what she tells you, you'll be okay." That was Martin. And so, going back to what we all know about him, his belief in doing things now and not waiting for tomorrow, he started his final journey. He said, "Lower my bed." We laid him flat. He put his head back, he closed his eyes, and he just lay there. After a few moments, he raised and lowered his hand, and he was frustrated that he was still here. I said, "It's not going to happen that fast." But that's how I want to remember him, not just as my father, but as the man who taught me, challenged me, frustrated me, made me laugh, worried about me, checked in on me, and whether I always wanted to hear it or not, told me how I should have done something. He loved his family in his own way, and we loved him in ours. I'm going to miss the morning calls. I'm going to miss our evening conversations. I'm going to miss hearing, "You should have." And I'm going to miss knowing that somewhere out there, you were thinking about me and wondering what I was doing. You lived 89 and a half good years. You did it your way, and now, Dad, you can finally rest. We'll take it from here, and we'll do our best to make you proud. I love you.
He's on fire.
Hi, everyone. I'm Midge. I'm Martin's daughter-in-law. And thank you for all coming, and thank you all out there for watching. I've known Martin for almost 40 years. I've been very lucky to have been married into such a wonderful family and have had such a wonderful father-in-law. He always treated me as if I was one of his own. Martin and I had a terrific relationship. In addition to being my father-in-law, he was my friend. He was also the captain of the family. He was a big Yankees fan, and I guess you can say he was our Derek Jeter. Like Derek Jeter, there was no one like Martin. And if you'll indulge me, I made a list of some of the many ways that I personally will miss Martin, but in the same regards, these create wonderful memories. I've always said that our role in life is to teach and to leave memories for the next generation and those who survive us. And Martin certainly did a very good job in that regard. Martin, I will miss you. I will miss our weekly calls, checking in on each other, and comparing our many ailments. I'll miss our stock market discussions and your finance advice, and how you taught me about covered calls and other financial instruments. Our talking sports, specifically baseball and football, and your love of the Yankees and the Giants. And I still love you even though you love the Yankees. It was fun this year to have all of us follow the Knicks in their championship. I'll also miss going to Gallagher's with you and watching you enjoy the porterhouse steak that you shared with Mark, and laughing as you gnawed at the bone like a little kid. I'll miss sharing baked salmon with you on Sundays when we visited you on a regular occasion. You always knew that that was my favorite breakfast, and you always had that available to me. I'll miss your making Hebrew National hot dogs on the grill for Duran, because you also knew that that was one of his favorites. I also miss knowing that there would also always be at least a dozen pints of ice cream in your freezer. As you can tell, we're a very food-centric family. I'll miss watching you show your love for Ariel and spoiling her and enjoying Ariel and Michael's wedding. I'll miss your providing constant advice, much of which, but not all, which was taken. I'll miss your battles with the HOA, and I certainly hope no one from the HOA is here. But I will miss hearing about all of your battles with the HOA and about your backyard and your ultimate successes. I'll miss your willingness to battle for what was important to you, and this is a theme that you will be hearing recurring today, because that was the crux of Martin. There are many other things that I'll miss about Martin. These are just a few. Although you no longer may be our captain, like the Yankees, our family has some pretty good sluggers who will continue in your stead. Martin, as Debbie said, we will try to make you proud, and we are going to miss you terribly. Love you.
Thank you. I'm Ariel, the one allowed on the lawn. The servant is dead. That's what I would announce, very seriously, when I was 4 or 5 years old, playing castle at my grandparents' house. And, and finding my grandpa taking, that's what I would say when I would find my grandpa taking one of his famous naps. In my little kid brain, the king of the castle had a servant whose whole job was to be at my beck and call, not napping on the couch. I didn't know it then, but the title fit him better than I could have understood. My grandpa called me his princess, sometimes dear, and sometimes, for reasons none of us has ever figured out, Ariel quack quack quack. And whatever he called me, the truth underneath it was the same. He would do anything for his princess. He picked me up from the airport when I would visit in Florida, offered to do my laundry before I went back home, squeezed fresh orange juice in the morning, helped me with homework, or took me to an activity. When he and Grandma lived with us, he grilled me lamb chops. This summer I stayed with them at the Greens, and he took me all the way to Africa to see elephants in real life for my 16th birthday. A memory I, like the elephants, will never forget. And he sliced the challah at mine and Michael's wedding, an honor that I will cherish. But here's the thing, I wasn't special. That's just who he was with everyone. He drove Grandma when she needed to, he drove Grandma whenever she needed to go when she couldn't drive herself. He'd show up for my aunt and help or give advice for whatever needed fixing around the house. He taught my mom about stocks, and he gave my dad advice, mainly to get a haircut. But I'm sure a lot of other sage, sometimes uninvited fatherly advice. He gave me help and advice. He gave help and advice to anyone who wanted it, and let's be honest, sometimes it wasn't even asked for, but he did always know best. I think helping the people he loved was one of the things that made him happiest. That and Haagen-Dazs, a fridge stocked with numbered water bottles, a perfectly organized house, and a good nap. So maybe I was onto something as a 4-year-old. He wasn't a servant because anyone made him one. He earned that title. He chose it over and over for 89 years, and for every person lucky enough to know him. Not because he had to serve anyone, but because loving people to him meant showing up for them. Doing the small, unglamorous, unasked for thing every single time. The servant is no longer with us, but every laundry load, every ride, and every piece of unsolicited advice, that's still living within all of us.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm David. I'm the nephew from California. Thank you all for coming. I want to say hi to everybody who's also watching by Zoom. Hello, my mother, Barbara, and my daughter, Daniela, and my sister, Marcia, who are all watching in California. Wish you were all here. I didn't have anything written down, just some thoughts. I'm 3,000 miles away. So I spent more time in my latter years with Martin than I did my early years. But my earliest memories go back to, I was about 13, and when we all drove from New York to Florida together. My earliest memories of Martin and his was our famous Parmesan cheese story. When Martin didn't think they should charge us for Parmesan cheese at the pizza place. We left without the pizza. I 3,000 miles away, I didn't get the you should have's kind of thing. I think I got a pass from Uncle Martin. He was always nice to me, always loved seeing him and being around him. As I got older, I got to see him more and more. They would come for Thanksgiving. We would come for birthdays. Once Debbie moved here, Debbie and I are very close. So I would come frequently to see Debbie, and of course, always get to see Uncle Martin and Aunt Lila. And just, I always found him funny and sweet and charming, and I just loved being around him. But I have something special that I want to read from my mom. My mom's 85 and at home watching, and the travel to Florida is a bit much for her right now. So she wrote a little something, okay? And these are words from Martin's sister, my mom, okay. So, my dearest brother, I know this is the time for you to begin your journey to a place of peace. I will be so sad to be without you. You are the most wonderful brother anyone could ask for. I still remember when you gave me $250 in our early 20s so I could afford a summer camp at Beach Club in New Jersey. That was just who you were, always generous, always there when I needed you. Throughout our lives, you listened to all my stories. You supported me emotionally and helped me guide me through many decisions. You always seemed to have one more idea, and it was usually a good one. No matter the trials and tribulations we faced, we were always there for one another. We celebrated everything a family could celebrate: weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, graduations, birthdays, Thanksgivings, Passovers, and so much more. I always found a safe haven with you, and I hope you felt the same with me. Lately, we've talked every day, and you've given me all the love and caring I've needed. Looking back, I think we had an amazing childhood. We always got along, and you surprised everyone in high school when you won the heart of the most wonderful girl who became your wife. Lila, Debbie, Mark, Midge, Ariel, and Duran have given you everything they have, and I know how deeply they love you. You are the ultimate can-do man right to the very end. Now, it's time to put down your worldly chores and finally rest. You lived a long, productive, and meaningful life. You succeeded in every way that truly matters, because the love and respect surrounding you now show just how many lives you have touched. I also have to say what a wonderful son you were. Mom counted on you completely, and you never let her down. All in all, you lived a life well worth celebrating. You worked hard, raised a beautiful family, made lifelong loyal friends, and that is the true measure of a mensch. I love you, and I will always hold you in my heart forever. Thank you.
You were all fabulous. Lila, Mark, Debbie, we talked about a little bit at your home. I have no idea how a funeral director chooses a rabbi. I used to believe there was a roulette wheel in the office, and Speciner and then they spun the wheel around, and it came Pinsky, and here I am. I don't believe it. I think it somehow is beshert that we are together today. I feel so close to the three of you and to your families, and I want you to know how honored I feel to be part of this day with you and with your mom in California. I hope that we will have happier times together in the years ahead. When I left your home on Friday afternoon, I called my wife and she said, how were they? I said, I just love them. And she said, Stephen, you love everybody. Not true, I don't love everybody. And I said, no, these were very special people, and they are. And to hear how beautifully all of you painted that portrait of your husband and your dad and your uncle really completed a real true celebration. When I came home, I pulled out a poem from my file, which I really believe contains the message that Martin left for all of you whom he loved. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the streets beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give to them what you need to give to me. You can love me most by sharing your joys, multiplying your good deeds. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not in your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our Torah teaches. This is it, Ariel. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. Shalom la'afro la'nafsho. May peace, God's own sweet peace, ever be with his soul. And may God grant each of you who mourn so deeply this day a time of quiet healing. Amen. Dear friends, the family has asked me to announce that following this service, they will be returning to Lila's home, 11148 Kapalua Way in the Valencia Isles community of Boynton Beach, where they'll be sharing the afternoon till 7 p.m. with those who wish to be with them. Oh God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the sorrow of loss is but the measure of a love that is stronger than death. Even though we cry in the bereavement of our hearts, may we be as children who know that their parent is near and who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In this spirit, O thou who art the master of our destinies, do we commit all that is precious to us into thy keeping. As those of you who can, please rise as we repeat together words hallowed by generations of our people, as we share together the words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach yomtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachona v'meachona v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agalah uzman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mivarach le'olam omei amayah, Yitbarach v'yistabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei t'kodashah brichu le'elah min kol b'yachata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael Vimru, Amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort those who are bereaved here among us. Amen. El malei rachamim shelchem bamromim, hamsei menucha nachona tacha kamfer shechina, l'shmat Meir ben Moshe v'Rivka, shehalach le'olamo, ba'al rachamim yitzroa b'tzroa hachim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yonoch b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest unto the soul of Martin Speciner, who has departed from this world. Lord of mercy, bring him into thy presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession, and may his repose be everlasting shalom, everlasting peace. Amen.